I have been noticing something pop up in the indie author community lately with increasing frequency, and it might just be me, but you could call it manifesting, you could call it abundance mindset, but either way, it's the idea that you can create your success, that you can have control over most aspects of it, how much money you can make, the shape of your career, that you don't really need to focus on keeping up in a disciplined work schedule and budget. You just need to have the right mindset, the right energy you're putting out there, etc. And some of you might be in this camp and you are now bristling, wondering if I'm about to tell you that it is nothing but hokum and twaddle. Now let me tell you that whenever I have tried to manifest something, man, I've had some wild results, man. I have the other side going now. It is hokum and twaddle, how dare you tell them that? You can all relax because this is not really a video about either of those things. I mean, it is a little bit, but hello, I'm Lydia Foxglove. Welcome or welcome back. I am a full-time fantasy author and I talk about the creative life and occasionally the financial side of it, which is always a bit of a drag. Whenever I get together with a creative friend, inevitably at some point we end up discussing money, not necessarily money itself. We're not talking about like our investment portfolios. We're talking about how we balance what we love and what we burn to create versus the need to make a living. At this point, many of my friends have been publishing for 10 years, 20 years, and you know, we've been through it. There's quitting the day job, going back to the day job, picking up a part-time gig, picking up freelance work, doing work for hire, going from traditional publishing to indie publishing, and back and forth, or doing both at once. There are the books that you love that didn't sell, and the books that you felt like you sold out to write them. The unexpected hit, the unexpected flop. Certainly this is similar for other creative types I know as well. Almost all of us have to figure out where to compromise and in what direction. Like, which is worse? Living on the edge of poverty, creating something commercial that doesn't really feel like what you were meant to do, or working a 40-hour or more day job that you hate or maybe is okay, but is pulling time away from, again, the thing that you just feel like you're meant to do. But for some reason, you're just not getting the time to do it. Most artists of all types will have to choose one of the above options or some combination thereof throughout different points in their lives. The creative life is very financially uncertain. It can also feel a little frivolous. I believe art is very important and valuable and worth supporting in our society. Probably most of you do too, but we have to decide who and how, and that includes even within myself. Like if I write a very commercial book that I intended to sell and it does, but then people really love it and they send me mail saying this book got me through a tough time, I can't wait for the next one, well then I have to admit it feels like I really contributed to society. And then I write a book that is like a book of my heart, a book that I feel like I was meant to write. It doesn't sell anything. It ends up feeling very indulgent, like perhaps I should just be growing food or learning to be a plumber or something. And you know, I don't really have any skills that are like truly necessary to society. That's part of my problem. Like if I had lived in previous centuries, I have a very weak constitution, and I'm sure that I probably would have gotten taken out by one of those Oregon Trail diseases, or I would have been one of those young women that dies of consumption. Nature would have just weeded me out. Anyway, if I write a book that no one wants to buy, I feel a little useless. But the problem with that is that if everyone only ever wrote books that we felt sure were going to hit the market in that moment, then we'd be missing a lot of our best literature. So it's almost like we have to support a certain amount of duds to get the greats. And I'm sure this is why manifesting has such a powerful draw in publishing. It suggests that maybe you can have everything, the financial security, the writing what you want, working for yourself, but not too hard. And of course, plenty of people of all stripes are drawn to this idea, and that's why books like The Secret became bestsellers. But a lot of people might not realize just like how ridiculously disparate success can be, especially in indie publishing, where you can have somebody come out of nowhere and suddenly be making hundreds of thousands of dollars in a year, and then the whole thing might come crashing down and they're barely making anything a few years later, or vice versa. The rise and fall of fortunes are extreme. So there's always this tantalizing sense that huge money is just within reach. And none of my friends working any kind of normal job, even most of them who have their own business, talk as if they could be completely broke or millionaires within the next couple of years doing the same job. I'm not going to address in this video whether it is actually possible to manifest your dream creative life, because that would be ridiculous. That would be like, let's ask some random fantasy author on YouTube whether there is a God or whether there's life after death. These are just core beliefs that we all have to decide for ourselves. And this belief can be positive or it can be negative. It can be very real if you believe in it. It can be very not real if you don't believe in it. What I'm interested in examining here is, have my beliefs about money and my mindset about it affected my success? And I would say yes, they definitely have. And I think one thing that I should preface this with is that I'm very averse to cults. I mean, that sounded funny, like, what have cults ever done to anybody? But I mean, like, I have an extreme aversion to like anything that seems like a cult, even like certain fandoms and celebrity worship and self-help books and people who do seminars. I mean, it's not like fandoms or self-help books or seminars are bad. I just kind of always go into things with a mindset of prove to me you're not a cult, I guess. I think part of this is that for 4 years I worked at a health food store, and we had food, but we also had vitamins, and there were all these kind of huckstery products on the shelves. There was like the diet pills that you knew didn't work, and there were like those like $35 bottles of some kind of Amazonian fruit juice that was supposed to cure everything. Some of these products just really smacked of people's desperation to be well or fit or skinny, and we were profiting off of it. That was the part of the store that I just felt a little squicky about. I didn't really like to sell to people. I'd much rather give you my kale salad recipe. So I pretty much stuck to the food side. And all of this is to say that I haven't read a lot of self-help books, so your definition of these things may vary if you've read certain books. I don't know, because I haven't read them. But when I say manifesting, what I mean is the belief that you can create circumstances that we would normally believe to be beyond our control, such as how much money you can make writing books or what have you. So I just wanted to clarify that, since I don't really know the source material of some of these beliefs. I just know them from conversations with people. And of course, some people also hold the concept of prayer in a similar light, and if that feels more comfortable to you, feel free to substitute it mentally. I just obviously don't want to step on anybody's toes with religion, and prayer can mean different things to different people, so I didn't want to lump them together. My family was always very frugal. My mom was really good at budgeting. Like whenever we went on a road trip, this was before the internet, and she would have like these mobile travel guides, and she would look up all the hotels and motels in whatever cities we were going to stay in, and she would call them and like wrangle deals. She was like a one-woman Travelocity or something. We were all like that with everything. By the time me and my sisters were teenagers, we were always the kind of person that had a coupon for everything. We also had this awesome magazine back then called Zillions, which had all these lessons for kids about making smart financial decisions. So our financial education was probably better than average, even though there were a lot of things I still didn't understand until later, like interest rates and credit scores and what have you, but I think that's pretty normal. But like many 90s new age moms, by the way, I love 90s new age moms. They're one of my favorite demographics. I feel like the Asheville area has a lot of that 90s new age mom energy, and I love it, so I don't take this as disparaging in any way. But anyway, my mom was pretty into the manifesting idea, and as a kid, I was always kind of torn between like, okay, mom, whatever, and well, it couldn't hurt. But there is a bit of an inherent tension between these philosophies. Like, if you really believe you can manifest whatever, then why do you even need a really strict budget? On the other hand, if you adhere very strictly to the idea that hard work and strict budgets are the only way to achieve success, you can lose a certain faith, an ability to take a shot. I am kind of a natural skeptic, and for me, it just feels more comfortable to deal with plans and lists and data than believing in any of that woo-woo stuff. Of course, because I am a Capricorn. So for my personality, I have tended to land somewhere in the middle. When I was in my early 20s, I kind of flailed around, but then I hit on my method for a money mindset that has been the way I've operated ever since. The cats are playing with the balls and the rings again, so I apologize for the background cat noise. When I want something to happen, I imagine a timeline for it, and I imagine what I want for the end goal. It is often something that feels somewhat out of reach. Not impossible, but difficult. Like selling a book was the first thing. It felt very intimidating when I started. I really had no idea what to do to get to this point. But I gave myself a timeline of 4 years because that seemed possible. And then I started doing things that were possible in the immediate moment, as if I knew that I was going to reach the end goal. And all I had to do was fill in all the steps in between. I started researching agents, I joined a critique group, I started prioritizing my writing in a disciplined way, which I had never done before. Setting an intention and a timeline really helped me. And then from there, just getting some kind of momentum, taking steps. They might be teeny tiny baby steps, but they are steps. And like a baby, the more you hobble around and grab at objects on tables, the more confident you get in the next step. Similarly, when I wanted to buy a house, I had like no money to buy a house. I imagined like I need X dollars to put a down payment on a house. And then I started doing all the research and all the steps that I could do in that moment, like improving my credit score, researching the home buying process, figuring out all that financial stuff that I didn't really understand. I just started doing it even though I had no money for a down payment. And the money did come eventually, and I was ready because I had already been working toward it. And obviously that doesn't necessarily prove that I manifested the house, but I do think that that combination of budgeting and belief actually has helped. On one hand, you have practical steps. Practical steps are generally acknowledged as a great way to make things happen. And frankly, even if I could just manifest a ton of success immediately, I feel a lot more comfortable if I get there with some plans and steps rather than things falling on my lap very quickly, which can be overwhelming more than anything. On the other hand, you have the idea of creating your ideal reality through mindset. I remain skeptical because it is my nature, and also because I think of various circumstances, like if I could be a pen pal to Anne Frank throughout time, I probably wouldn't be writing her letters about manifesting her reality. That just feels like it would be in bad taste. But there was a takeaway from this that I do think helped shift me from endless procrastination to actually doing things. Even if I didn't quite believe that I could magically create my own reality, it gave me the sense that I am the only one who can reach for the life that I want. I might not get it, but I am the only one who can make the attempt. I want to write novels, and no one is going to write them for me. No one will ever read my work if I don't write it and share it. There are all sorts of challenges that we face in life, levels of time and education, mental health, physical health, general privilege. And if the barriers that stand in your way feel like too much, it's okay to not do things. You don't need to do any grand things to be a wonderful and valuable person. In fact, we need fanfic writers. We need dungeon masters for D&D. We need the friend who bakes a cake from scratch. We need the friend who knits a scarf. We need the friend who's just there to talk to us now and then. We need little things sometimes. And if all you can ever manage in life is some of those little things, that is still wonderful. You don't need to set up grand ambitions for yourself. But if there is anything that just keeps burning inside of you to be done, the world is the world, and the only part that we can control is ourselves. So for many years, I did procrastinate. I had a hard time finishing things. I was afraid to join critique groups. I was afraid to submit my work anywhere. The budget and the notebooks full of plans, all the magical thinking in the world, none of that would matter if I didn't do something. You can go to all the writing conferences, you can get all the tips on procrastination, which I probably will do a video on that at some point. You can have mentors, you can have writing books, you can build yourself a special desk, you can build yourself a whole entire cabin. All of this will only go so far. At some point, it just has to be you and the work, not glamorous. Sometimes just sitting there staring at the blank page. If you want to get it done, you have to do it. When you start, you're not going to feel ready. You might never feel ready, actually. And that's normal. When you send it out to anyone, whether it's a friend or critique group or an agent or Amazon, you're not going to feel ready either, and that's also normal. So this has continued throughout my career. I will make my plans, I will take practical steps to achieve those plans, and then at some point I just might have to take a risk. I have to be able to imagine that this risk might pay off, because I mean, if you're going to take a risk, you might as well believe that it's going to pay off. I am a very cautious person, but I do realize that at some point to achieve things, you sometimes have to jump across something that feels a little too wide. And ultimately, almost all of my serious plans have panned out, often right down to the exact timeline or the exact amount of money that I told myself that I needed. And this might totally just be luck, or coincidence, or from projecting confidence in what I was doing, or maybe even just because I set fairly reasonable goals. I'm certainly not here to tell you otherwise, because I mean, I have no agenda to sell you on a belief. My main reason for discussing this is because it is simply a reality of life that we all have to wrangle with our beliefs around money and success and how that informs our decisions. I have had enough crazy stuff happen that sometimes I am like, Mom was onto something. And yet, when I saw the manifestation talk in indie writing circles, I bristled a little. I wondered why. Why does that make me feel wary when I actually have had, well, like I have to admit that I have had better results in life when I operate like, okay, this is going to happen. I just need to do these things to get there, which is the exact same thing as a lot of the conversations that I was seeing. After thinking about it for a little while, I realized that I wasn't that comfortable with the focus in a lot of indie writer groups on achieving the most success and the most money, writing the most books, because I had been doing these things for several years. I was making more money than I needed to live, and I'm glad I did because I saved it, and that's partly why I'm here now, trying out YouTube. But this goes back to some stuff that I've said in earlier videos. I was just losing my focus as to what makes for an actual good life, and I was getting lost in hustle culture. So I realized that me bristling at these conversations was not actually about them. It wasn't about anybody else's success or what anyone else was doing or thinking. This was all about me needing to take a step back and to assess, do I really want to work this much? Do I really need this much money, especially if this is the price that I must pay to have it? And at this point, I had a fairly comfortable amount of savings, and yet I was working just as hard as when I was in the hole and had almost nothing. And I remember thinking back then, like, if I just had like this and that and this much saved, then I could relax a little. And yet here I was, and was I relaxed a little? So I reached a point where I just had to step away from the indie writing communities that were focused primarily on making money. Like most people, I still need to make money, but I needed to reassess what my priorities were. It is so easy to end up doing everything for money, making every choice for money. And those are pretty much my thoughts on it. I feel like I should have a good wrap-up statement, but I really don't, because I'm sure this is something I will continue to wrestle with and continue to change. I guess if I do have one takeaway, it's that I don't think that I would be where I am today without working very hard and having a strict budget. But I also don't think that I would be where I am today without the belief and the faith that my goals were possible. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I didn't get any knickers in a twist, because I know these topics can be somewhat sensitive, but I would love to know in the comments how you handle that balance between budgeting versus just trusting that it will work out, because people have wildly different approaches. Like, do we all have that friend who always seems like they're just splurging on stuff and making stupid financial decisions and like doing whatever the hell? And somehow they're just like, they're always fine and they're never worried about it whatsoever. And they don't even have a great job or anything. They're just kind of like, somehow things always just pan out. Maybe you are that friend. How do you do it? I don't want to be that friend, but I always kind of wonder, like, what is that headspace like? And as always, if you like this video, giving me a thumbs up will help me with the algorithmic fortunes. I also have a Patreon and a Substack if you want more. I so appreciate you all being here and all the interesting conversations, and I'll see you next time. Bye!